still pinching myself. I interviewed Joanna the Healer. I've been watching her on YouTube for years and following her intuitive guidance and loving her YouTube videos. And fast forward a few years, I actually was able to take a shamanic breathwork ceremony led by her in person. We hit it off. We kept in touch. She learned that I'm a QHHT practitioner. And the next thing you know, I'm doing a QHHT session with Joanna the Healer. Okay. So we talked about it, we taped it, we recorded it, and we got to talking about how our work is similar and how much I would love to have her as a guest on this podcast. She would also like to have me on her channel. And from there, if you continue to watch this video, we're going to talk about what the subconscious advised for us to do together as a work project. Joanna's going to tell you all about the QHHT session and the different lives that showed up for her and how they interconnect and what the lesson is for her in this current lifetime. She tells you all about what it's like to be a client in a hypnotherapy session. And we talked about all the things. We talked about Dolores Cannon, and we got real about, what us light workers, healers, whatever you want to call us, what we're being called to do at this time on the planet. And it was a really deep discussion. We got into the divine feminine energy, how we're all being called to drop into our hearts, not to completely leave what's going on in our minds, but we're all being called to drop into our hearts. And we talked about one of our favorite Dolores brain hacks. We talked about it all, and I am so excited to share this with you. I can't even believe I got to interview Joanna the Healer, and we're going to be doing more projects together. So it is beyond thrilling and exciting for me to introduce to you an interview with Joanna the Healer. I hope you love it. Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I am so excited about this particular episode. I have a very special guest today. It's my first interview, and it just so happens to be Joanna the Healer. For those of you that are on YouTube, you've heard of her. Obviously, I've been following Joanna for years. And so I also follow her on Instagram, and she was saying she was doing shamanic breath work in my hometown. Literally, I had no idea that we were in the same city, let alone I could go to her shamanic breath work in person the next day. So, I planned it and I dropped everything and I went to this session with her. And ever since then, the session itself was so transformational for me. And ever since then, Joanna and I have been like back and forth working together. And you'll never believe it, but she said, "You're a QHHT practitioner. What? I want to do that." So then I did the session for her, and we decided to share a little bit about her experience with me. But before we get into all the things about our QHHT session, I would like for Joanna just to introduce herself quickly for those of you who might not know who she is. Take it away, Joanna.
Thank you so much, Jenny. My name is Joanna. Thank you so much for having me. This is an honor for me. I was asking, what should I say about me? Okay, so I'm Joanna the Healer. You might know me from my YouTube channel. What is it that I do? Essentially, I believe what I do is I help people see themselves for who they truly are beyond their limitations. That's the best explanation. And I've been doing, to be quite honest with you, I don't exactly know I don't know the mechanics of it. I just seem to do something and people seem to, feel better. And I've been doing this work probably since about 2006 in varying degrees and in different forms. Hypnotherapy, which is why QHHT was like ding, 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 ding. Hypnotherapy, counseling, energy healing, mediumship, breath work, channeling. I think I already said that. So this is me. That's it right there.
You do, and you read energies. So I'm big time into astrology, as you know, and anytime I listen to one of your videos, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the North Node, that's Pluto, that's the moon, this is that. And you're like, you love astrology, but you're not even up on astrology. And you
Mm.
can sense what's going on in the cosmos. That's what I love so much about your videos.
Thank you. I don't know how I know what I know, and I don't even know that what I know is actually happening. I'm learning constantly to trust it.
And you've been guided to just talk, and that's what you do. And we love it that you share with us.
Which is funny because I am typically not someone who is used to talking. So this is actually not pushing me out of my comfort zone, which apparently this is what this October 2nd eclipse is about.
Yes,
So
yes, I'll be talking all about
yeah,
that. And not to
yeah.
give much of your story away, because I'm going to let you explain what happened during the QHHT session. But during your QHHT session, your guides, your subconscious, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, advised you to do more interviews. So aren't I so lucky that I was able to
Mhm.
do one?
Yeah. And
So thank
I
you.
want no, thank you. I just want audience to hear this, how you have manifested the breath work or whatever it was, and I have manifested you in less than a week. I literally was talking to one of my members and he's like, hey, you should do QHHT session. I'm like, yeah, I don't know anybody around. And I've asked, and the lady who had sessions said, that other person is not doing it anymore. So I thought, okay, well, it would be nice to have one. And literally a week later, you showed up and it's like, what? Thank you,
Here I
universe.
am.
You mean that's all I have to do? Yes, that's all you have
Wow.
to do. Yeah.
Manifestations are happening quicker these days. I think we were
Oh,
talking about that too.
it's incredibly fast. And the key thing, the trick, if we can use that funny word, the trick is to let go of the need to know how and when. And that's the hardest part I find for humans, because we tend to want to grab onto things and we want to calculate. And it's like the universe is like, no, just give it to us and you go about your day and then see what happens. Okay, boom, there it is.
And here we
Yeah,
are doing
I
an
know.
interview on the QHHT session.
It's
Isn't
it's
that brilliant?
it's like magic, seriously. It's like
I love
magic.
it. Okay, I
Yeah.
have a series of questions to ask about how the session was for you, and you can give the viewers a bit of an idea of your experience. But first, I just want to talk about what a QHHT session is for people that aren't aware. So it was created by the late, great Dolores Cannon. So if you're on YouTube, you've probably seen Dolores's work all over YouTube as well. She created a script, and it's called the Quantum Healing Hypnosis Therapeutic. Am I saying that right? QHHT. And so she gave this script, she made this script, she perfected this script. And it allows you to look into past lives or perhaps parallel lives, maybe future lives, perhaps a human life, perhaps non-human. And so you explain that to the person to the client when you're going in, that whatever is shown to you, it is exactly what your current life what you need to hear in terms of what's going on in your current life. So just to tell you about the QHHT session, there's three main sections. First, the practitioner and the client sit down for about an hour. You get to know each other. You get to know the cast of characters, and that's going to come up later in my questions. So cast of characters for most people is like parents, siblings, and it's children and spouses. Usually those are the main cast of characters that you want to get to know from the client. And then you also want to know what's going on emotionally, what's going on spiritually, what's going on in the body, like questions that you might have, like, why do I have this lower back thing that hasn't gone away? Why do I have this reoccurring dream over the last 10 years? Stuff like this. And so you get to know the client. That's about an hour. So then the second part of the QHHT, the session is the practitioner will induce the client, will use the script that Dolores created and use the hypnotherapy voice and get the client into theta, the state of theta. Theta is like right before you fall asleep at night and right when you wake up in the morning. So you're trying to hold the client in that theta state. That's when the ego mind goes elsewhere and you can start to imagine and hear things and get some guidance from your higher self. And so then the third part of the QHHT session is the practitioner can ask further questions. So once in the second part, when the practitioner takes the client into theta, you can explore up to 3 lives. That's max, according to Dolores. That's enough. And then in that third section, when you can ask the subconscious or the higher self or the spirit guide, whatever you want to call it. Dolores called it the subconscious. That's when you can ask the questions, right? So like, why did you show us these lives? Why does she have lower back issues? What's this reoccurring dream she's had since she was 10 years old? You can ask all the questions. So that whole thing from the very beginning of getting to know the client till the end, that can be anywhere from 3 to 5-ish hours. And so that's why it's such a long process. But just to let you know, that's what a QHHT session is about. And you need to have a QHHT practitioner. And I've been one for about 5 years. And I've done quite a few sessions. And actually, Dolores always taught us never to do them online. So Dolores showed up, and we're going to talk about that later in our questions, because we did ask Dolores about that. Okay, so my first question to you, Joanna, after hearing all about that, did you enjoy this session? I know you've done hypnotherapy before. You are a hypnotherapist. Did you enjoy the QHHT process, and how does it differ from what you've done in the past?
Very much enjoyed it. What's the difference? To me, it actually didn't feel, to me personally, any different than any other hypnosis sessions I've been myself in. They were shorter. It had to be guided by somebody else, because I can't get myself to that state and still ask questions, because the two brains are not working at the same time. So for me, it felt very, very similar. I did notice I was going in and out because it was a longer session. I had the opportunity to observe the in and outs a little bit more, if that makes any sense. It's like I was going through waves. And depending on what wave I was in, I was perceiving information. It's very hard to explain, because you think it's your mind, but it's coming from deep inside of you. But at the same time, I was also aware of the yuck, 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 yuck. So there was a distinction taking place. And you being the practitioner and me doing hypnotherapy for so many years, one of the first questions is, did I make this up? Did I make this up? That's the dead giveaway is when you receive information before your practitioner says something, which is what I was experiencing. Jenny was instructing me to visualize certain things, and I had that vision moments before she was saying it. So I know it wasn't my ego. It was some other bigger part of me that was tuned into the etheric field. So we were communicating. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it was longer. It didn't feel that different than a therapy session. Although I will say the key difference is how you lead the client, the specific words that are being used, because each specific word is designed to tap into a specific purpose. So it's all about the verbiage. And of course, your voice has to go along with it and be very monotonous and very calming, just to keep me there. But no, it was very relaxing. I enjoyed it. I could have stayed there forever, but the body's like, yeah, no, we need to get up.
Exactly. Yeah, and I did keep asking, is Joanna's body okay? Because I wanted to keep asking questions. I could have asked questions all day too, but there were updates from your subconscious saying, oh, she's okay for probably another half an hour. So you can get updates like that throughout the session. And then the other thing that you mentioned was that you're talking about the conscious mind coming in sometimes. And so one of the great techniques that Dolores taught us is to acknowledge there's the conscious mind, there's the ego mind. So you're welcome to watch, but we're going to just ask that you watch from the corner, because right now we're talking to the subconscious. So you acknowledge that it's there, but then try and calm the conscious mind. So that's interesting.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I love the mind stuff. So to me, it's like a candy store.
I love it. Well, I'm so glad you had a good experience. And now for the second part of what I'd like to ask you here. There were 4 lives that came up for you. And in fact, I only knew about 3, and I was asking about the 3, but there were 4 lives that came up. All of them were human. And I'm just wondering, have you had time to process these 4 lives? And maybe do you think the 4 are connected? And maybe have you been able to process why did they show up? Because that's what is advised to you at the beginning of the session before going in, is we know that your subconscious will bring forward whatever lives you need to see right now in your life for whatever reason, and then that's up for you to process. So have you had some time to think about that?
I did, and I feel for the most part, it's making sense, right? Sense. It has to make sense in the head. Um, you said 4. We had 5 lives, actually. 3, were 5. Was it
Okay,
5?
that's
I thought
news to me.
I thought maybe it's 4. I don't remember now. But it's funny because you were saying Dolores only advised 3. I'm like, no, I'm going to break the rules over here.
Yeah, you did. Yes, you did. And the first life was a real rule-breaking life. And I'm glad that you told me about it after. Do you feel like sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first image, sorry, go back to, so to answer just the earlier question, did I have time to reflect? Yes. Did it make sense? I believe it does. And I see the reasons behind why they would be shown to me. What's interesting though, Jenny, for you to know that in all of these lives, there was only one life where there was focus on other people. All the other lives, it was just me. Like there was not a lot of focus on the characters. I don't know if I just realized that. So it was all about the self. We did ask a question specifically about a certain member, but I was shown very much about me. So I don't know if that's a common thing or not,
I love
but
that.
so yeah, so the first experience I was taken to was the best way to describe it is I found myself being surrounded by a whole bunch of women who were in a basement doing some kind of magic. And the feel I got from it is that there was one prominent woman. I don't know if that was me. I was observing, and I had a feeling that they were dabbling in something a little bit dark magic. Now, I believe the reason why I was shown this is because last year, I think, or maybe a few months ago, within the last year, I was in a deep meditation where I was taken into Egyptian temple. And I was shown and told that I used to go there into magic schools. I forget what they're called. And one of the things that apparently I know what to do or how to do is black magic. And I was actually shown how to do that. In that moment, when I was shown that, I was like, yeah, no, I know what you guys are trying to do. You're trying to test me. No, sorry, not interested. So I feel this lifetime perhaps was shown to show me that there was something like that, and I was dabbling in it, which we all have at some points. But it was something that it was just there, like I didn't have any attachment to it. So maybe what it was showing me is that I don't have to be afraid of it, that I'm
Good.
not interested. Yeah,
Not interested at all.
yeah,
It didn't
no,
take you in at all. You just said, okay, I'm observing and
yeah.
goodbye.
Yeah. And not that I would be judging as a good or bad. I'm just apparently choosing not to have that experience, which sounds like I have had that experience before. Right. The whole famous saying is we're all afraid of our power. Logic goes like, what does that mean? Yeah, when you actually feel that we are terrified of our power because we are so freaking powerful. And if the ego is not in the right space, well, the saying, too much power in the wrong hands, not a good
Yes.
idea. Yeah. So
Yes.
that was the first one.
And do you feel comfortable sharing any of your other lives with us?
Yeah, you're going to have to remind me how it went because I
The
have it somewhere
bridge.
here.
The bridge
Oh,
was the
yes.
next.
Okay. So that was interesting. So I was shown an image. This is where the mind started to step in because it didn't make sense. But a lot of what I was seeing was communicated to me through metaphors. And that's how universe communicates with me. It maybe it does with everybody, but I get my information through metaphors more so than linear words because those are very complicated and very cumbersome. So the image I had was that I was standing on a bridge that I was building. So my thought was, well, how can I be standing on a bridge that isn't built yet? It made no sense to me. And then I realized that what I was doing is I was building a bridge to connect two seemingly different worlds. It was a metaphor. And it's like ding, 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 ding. This is essentially what I do. I help people connect to this other world that's seemingly different, but it's not, through, what I channel, education, self-awareness, whatever that is. So I feel that it was shown to me to almost like ground that knowing, because I constantly question, right? Constantly question the whole doubt thing. It was like, okay, this is what you're here to do. Like we've said this to you many times before. Okay, so here it is again. This is what you're here to do. So it was just to kind of make me own it more, a little bit
Yeah.
more, I could
That's
say.
what I sensed too. It's like the
Yeah,
veil was taken off and here it is.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh, revealing this is what you do.
yeah.
I love
I
that.
don't remember how I reacted to it. What I
You
do, what
didn't
is
know that it was you at first, right?
right.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah,
later on
yeah.
you realized, oh, wait a second, that's me.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So that's interesting because again, the mind comes in, it tries to figure things out, and then this other deeper awareness comes in, and it's like, oh, boom, there it is. It's not a thinking thing, it's just this awareness. Um, Probably it was to crystallize again, to just kind of reaffirm that's what I'm here to do. Which, yeah, I like that. Thank you. I'll take that. I'll take any confirmation I can get. I'm just a human being.
Yes. And the
And then
other realization you had later in the session is that that particular individual who was dressed in a robe carrying
mm,
a white book, you realized later in the session that you have had a vision in this life about 20 years ago of that
yes,
same person.
yes.
So
In
it's you.
it was either 1999 or 2000 to 2000, between that space, where I saw a being in my room, full on 3D eyes, not in my mind, in with my eyes. And he felt like he was dressed like a monk. He had a hood on, so I couldn't see his face, and he was standing sideways, but he was holding this white book. And I needed to see this white book. And for up until last Thursday, I couldn't figure out who this being was. Well, apparently that was me from some other lifetimes. And apparently the book that I was holding was the book that I channeled. And it was all about, I'm almost dare to say it was about God. Now, Joanna goes, well, I don't know anything about God. It's so huge. How can I? But this book was channeled. So what came through was that I've done this work before in terms of communicating what God is and what God isn't, which is such a huge topic, right? And that I am not only doing that in this lifetime again, but that this book is inside of me. It can come out if it wants to. Now, years and years before, I have been giving a title of a book in a hypnotherapy session, and there is no book so far, so we'll see.
Well,
But that
see,
was
because later
interesting.
on in the session, you sincerely downloaded it into your heart chakra.
Oh,
It
yes.
actually
Yeah.
came in,
Yes. Yes. I
and we had
felt
to
it going
breathe
into my
through
body.
that in the
Mhm.
session, that the
Yeah.
book is inside
Yeah.
you, like physically, it's in you now.
It's very difficult to describe the feeling, but I literally felt it coming into my beingness on an energetic level. And I remember I caught a glimpse of my breathing because it completely changed, but I didn't change it. It changed as the result of what was happening in that moment. So the body goes through, it's like the body knows exactly what to do in order to accommodate different kind of energies that come through. So I feel that was another download that I received. Yeah.
Yes,
So it's
I
exciting. We'll see what
saw
happens.
it. I sensed that as well. So that was a very important life that came through. And we asked so many questions and we went there and we talked about the bridge and all the things. But the book and the realization that that was you and that was that vision you had all those years ago was quite a huge realization within the session.
Not
And then
only
the
that,
next life was, sorry, did you want to say something about
oh,
that?
I just want to add to the whole bridge. In 2016, I had a being Thoth who came into my body, so I trans-channeled him completely by fluke. This was not something I was asking for. And I have the whole channel written down. And he actually, I showed it to you, Jenny, he actually used the word bridge in that channel, the message. So I just like, here it is. So the wording, specific wording, and the image of a bridge is, again, it's very affirming, very affirming.
Right. And it's bringing things together that maybe you still haven't fully processed yet, but it's like, it's puzzle pieces.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly it. It's exactly it. Yeah.
That's amazing. And then there was another profound life that came through. You were male again, and it seemed like it was old-fashioned days, and you lived a life of privilege, and you basically were disgusted with yourself, is like the sense that I got, the way you were answering questions. You know, I was asking all the right things and everything, and just trying to get you grounded into this life. You were basically disgusted with who you were, how you treated people. And you didn't understand, like you just didn't understand what was the point of this life. And is that right? Is that how you remember that?
It felt I had anything I wanted. I didn't have to work. So I had opulence everywhere, but my heart was empty.
Right.
My heart was empty. And, you know, the whole idea, we all need money. That's just a fact of life. We do. But at the end of the day, you can have all the riches in your world. If your heart is empty, what's the point? What's the point? So, but what's interesting, that particular life was shown to me that this particular man, and I seem to recall being men a lot, which explains why I'm so much in the masculine energy in this lifetime. But this man acquired his riches through means of theft. In other words, he took things from other people that didn't belong to him and made it his own. And at the end of the day, in that lifetime, something happened and some sort of revolution was happening, and everything he had was taken away. And all of a sudden, he went from being all this big to being nothing. So two complete opposites. And without his riches, he had nothing. So there's a message right there I'm sensing it's like if you rely on the outside only and you don't have it inside, once the outside is taken, you've got nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
I fast forwarded you to an important day. That's part of what the practitioner does when trying to explore a particular life. I fast forwarded you to an important day in that life, and you witnessed a violent act. Do you remember how that felt? Did you feel something, or was that just an observation?
No, I tend to see things as an observer for the most part. So in that lifetime, that man was stabbed by the very person who used to work for him, and it was not a nice relationship. So the person basically decided to say, now it's your turn.
Right. That's
And whether it was metaphorical stab in the heart, or I was actually stabbed in the back, because I was stabbed in the back. That was the end of me. So there was a rich man who had an empty heart, but then riches were taken away and he had nothing. And he basically experienced the very thing that he probably did to others.
right.
Right.
In the end. Yeah.
Yeah. But in this lifetime, one of the fears that kept coming up for me over and over and over, particularly with this channeling work, is that there was a part of me that was terrified of being seen as a fraud. Well, that man was a fraud.
Right.
That one was a fraud. So, I mean, I know I'm not a fraud. I know that, but there was this almost irrational fear of being a fraud. And I think they showed me that to go, okay, you actually did that. Okay. But you're not that, you're not that anymore. You're done. Yeah. My
Yeah, I think a
categories.
lot of light workers, whatever you want to call us, healers, whatever you want to call us, we have imposter syndrome, something fierce, you know? And so to see a past life like that, where you in fact were a fraud, you know, like, look, you did it. Okay. You're not doing that now. So I think that that's why that was brought forward for you to see that that karma's done. And in the very last day of that life, you saw the karma ended. The karma is even, it's over. Dolores talks about karma a lot. So that's kind of a powerful statement for this whole process, I'm sure.
What you're saying right now, what I want to add to this is that this session helped me release the karma, perhaps. This is what it helped me. It helped me release the karma. It's like, okay, here's your reasons why you have these fears, but you're beyond that now. It's done. You don't have to hold on to that anymore, because the whole idea of fearing that I'm a fraud, I hold myself back, and that holds back my channeling abilities. So what I've noticed over the last few years, that I'm just feeling much more open just to let it flow. So it absolutely, letting go opens you up. Yeah, just get yourself a session. I'll tell you, your life will never be the same.
I love that.
Just saying.
Just saying. So tell us about the Egypt life too, because I know you have such a connection with Egypt.
I
My
do.
goodness.
I do. And I've had that connection ever since I was in my early 20s, for no apparent reason. I was shown being born to some very affluent family, but it wasn't just affluent. It was, the image I have was being born into a mother who was extraordinarily powerful. Like, she had an entire, I don't even know what to say. Like, she ruled. And I remember in that vision, she was saying to me that what she has, it's mine. And I couldn't comprehend how this little thing, had power like that. It couldn't compute. And I believe, whether it was an actual life or was a metaphor to show me what actually happens inside of me, that we do have this power, but from our small perspective, it's very hard to comprehend it, to own it. It's like you don't know what to do with it all. And yeah, so when I was talking about being afraid of one's power, I think that somehow connects. So I feel like it was showing me the capacity that I have in terms of power. Now, here's the thing. Power in and of itself is dormant. It's what you do with this power, right? Again, I was shown the life as not a nice guy using his power, abuse of power. I was shown these ladies having extraordinary, powerful gifts, dabbling in something that, well, let's just say probably wasn't too nice. That's using and abusing power. But then there was this woman, powerful woman, and the way she ruled was, she was powerful. She was not afraid, but she was very feminine and loving. So interesting that we are now bringing in feminine, divine feminine. So she was in charge, but she was also very soft and solid. So those can be, very conflicting at times, right? And that's, yeah. So anyway, that's what I feel that was for. Does that make sense?
And that came up, the feminine power within you, because I talked to your subconscious about that after exploring the lives. And I talked about how I had read your astrology birth chart prior to the session. And your astrology birth chart is full of divine feminine. You are fully ruled by Venus. And so I was just asking your subconscious, like, can we give Joanna some guidance on her divine feminine? And it was very interesting, because you, Joanna, don't see yourself that way, and I think that it came up in the session, not only in the life that we had just looked at, but then when I was talking to your subconscious actually asked me to repeat it. And your subconscious said, yeah, no, Joanna needs to hear this right now. Can you please say it again? So do you
really? I don't recall that. No.
Yes.
No. So what is it that was said?
Just that you are this divine feminine. And I feel, and I gave my opinion to the subconscious. Sometimes I do that in a session when you get to that third part of the session, and you can have a little bit of a banter, like a back and forth, a little bit of a convo with the subconscious. And I say, it is my humble opinion, subconscious, Joanna's subconscious, that we as humanity are moving from masculine in our minds. We've all been trained to live here, right? We're all experts at all of this up here. And I believe we're all being asked to drop down into our hearts, not to completely leave our minds out there, because this serves us well, and it has served us well, but now we're all being guided to drop into our hearts and drop into the divine feminine, surrender to receive, to get more intuitive and to embrace our intuitive powers. So I asked the subconscious, I gave that opinion. It's my humble opinion, subconscious, that this is what's happening to humanity. And I believe that Joanna is really dropping into her feminine, because she was born for this. And the subconscious corrected me. And your subconscious said, it's her design. She was designed for this. And I said, oh, okay, she was not born for this. She was designed like this. And the subconscious said, yes, she hasn't like fully accepted it yet. So they asked me to just say, oh, tell me what you saw in this. Like, you're talking back again, it's not you, it's your subconscious talking back to me, having this fantastic philosophical conversation. And it said, okay, tell her about her astrology and tell her later, like when she's awake, about her astrology. So that's something we can definitely look more into as well.
What you're also saying is it solidifies what I know I'm here for, because that has always been the biggest struggle for me, to be in the feminine, for many reasons. A lot of abuse while growing up, all that stuff, when we get into the mechanical structure and trying to control. But the very fact that I have such a struggle with it is like a dead giveaway that this is what I'm here to overcome. So when clients often say, well, what is it that I'm here to learn? Well, there's many things, but let's start with this. What's the thing that you've been struggling the most in your life? What's this? Well, this is what you're here to overcome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then the final life, which we'll say very briefly, because it was a very brief life you were shown. You were a woman and you were fleeing something with your children. Now, was it a natural disaster? Was it a man killing you? We don't know. But something killed you with your children, and it was just shown quickly, like frightening.
Yeah.
Gone. Is that how you remember it as well?
Yeah, she was running away and she was very afraid, but whatever was going to quote unquote get her was inevitable.
Right.
And the message, and eventually it felt like it was some sort of a disaster, and it was very quick. Maybe it was a tsunami, actually, Atlantean times. That could be. But anyway, what I got from that message, I got from that was, you can't escape the inevitable. You might as well just enjoy it.
Right. Beautiful.
That's a hard message to hear.
That's very divine feminine.
But actually, that's true. That's true. Yeah, because
surrender,
and the whole idea of being constantly afraid, like we're always so afraid. I mean, I'm not saying go out in the middle of the street and get killed. I'm not saying that, but to fear something that is naturally going to occur, how much time we spend fearing that, when we could actually be doing something much more enjoyable. Doesn't mean we don't protect ourselves. Of course, we have to be smart, but there is probably overabundance of fear that we humans experience, far more than is necessary for survival.
Not serving us.
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing those lives with us. I mean, there were tons of more things said and done during those lives, but thank you for giving us a gist of those lives. Now I want to switch gears a little bit. Dolores showed up. So what I mean by that is Joanna is very psychically tuned. She knows what's going on in the cosmos, even though she doesn't know what's going on in the cosmos. And also she can connect with the other side. There's lots of supernatural, awesome things that Joanna can do. And it's funny, when we first started the session, Dolores showed up, right? So that was fantastic. What did she give thumbs up? What was your sense for Dolores?
She wasn't talking, communicating with words. She was, first of all, the energy she showed up with was this very motherly, just this very loving, feminine, very divine feminine. And I feel like she was just kind of encouraging you to keep doing what you're doing. And the fact that she showed up was a surprise to me, because I tend to shy away from bringing people. It's not really my thing, because my head goes, well, did I make that up? I'm still a human being. But when it's like, boom, there, and I didn't ask for it, it was like, okay, it's a pretty big bet that she's actually there. But hey, who knows? But she was just one of the things that you were asking was the doing online session versus going and doing in person. And you said that you feel like you should feel guilty because you've done them online. And Dolores just gave me almost like, I'm not going to speak about it, but I'm going to give you a wink. So it was that kind of a message.
Thank you, Dolores.
So, yeah.
Because, yeah, the sessions online are just as powerful, in my humble opinion, as being in person. I've done both. Being in person, if you can do it, that's great, but also online is another option as well. So thank you for that. And I
It's
just
all
want
energy,
to
yeah.
briefly talk about Dolores. She was a pioneer for hypnotherapy, and not only for this particular QHHT form of hypnotherapy, but Dolores taught us about New Earth, and she gave light workers and healers, like she paved the way for us. And she didn't even know she was doing it, by the way. Because this was years ago, right? And Dolores talked about the waves of volunteers. And, I've read up on what she said. Basically, what I'm sensing from her research and from her knowing from doing so many sessions with people and finding out about the waves of volunteers, they kind of started after the Second World War in the early 40s. And then as each decade hit, it was a different kind of volunteer. And in my own research, I just sort of looked at the Pluto transits. The Gen X is the Pluto in Libra, like you and I are Gen Xers. We came as volunteers to teach humanity about relationships. That's why so many of us Gen Xers have had broken relationships, and teaching, the younger generations that you don't have to live in relationships that are like killing your soul. And there are ways of getting out and things like this, and how to redefine relationships. So that's what Gen Xers were given with Pluto in Libra. So also Dolores talked about one of my very favorite brain hacks that I wrote about in my book, and it's called Rewrite the Script. It's so simple that it's so fabulous. And if I were to be so bold as to say, it's probably my favorite brain hack. And so for those of you that aren't familiar, what Dolores says is that all of life is a play. It's like a movie, if you will, right? And if you don't like the characters in your particular play, just write them out and rewrite the script, right? And so think of each character that comes in, reason, season, lifetime. Like think of them as coming in, exiting, you write them into the script to teach you this lesson. Okay, so they've been written in and now we're writing them out. And so it gives you that opportunity and that permission to look at them as an observer. It's like, oh, that friend that I was friends with for 30 years, and I was telling a victim story about it for so long. No, really what they were is they played that character perfectly. They actually deserve an Academy Award for the role that they played. So her Rewrite the Script, that is straight Dolores Cannon, one of my favorite brain hacks to get you to be an observer in your life and to sincerely rewrite the script. She says that's how powerful we are. So how much do you love the Rewrite the Script from Dolores Cannon? Do you love it?
Not only do I love it, it's what I've been practicing ever since I became a hypnotherapist without even knowing that that's what I was doing. So as you're saying, rewrite the script, in my head, it's presented to me as rewrite the story. And this is what I do with sessions, with clients and sessions. I help them see the value of their struggle, the value, because whenever we see the value, we tend to want to do this instead of this. Once we see the value of it, then we no longer have this relationship with it. Once that's no longer there, what happens is this becomes more possible. So it becomes more of a unification as opposed to being in resistance. And that changes not only your perspective, it fundamentally shifts your vibration.
Yes.
So it shifts your trajectory going forward. That's how powerful it is.
Yes. And it breaks the karmic ties. That's the other thing that Dolores says is that's how you can cut ties with karma in a lifetime. You can see it, you've got to break the karma with that person, and that's how you can do it. And then to follow up with that, people would ask Dolores, well, how do you know if you have in fact healed the karma? The karma is done. And her answer was very simple. Again, this is all very simple, even though it's extremely profound. Her answer is very simple. And she says, well, if they continue to poke your buttons, it won't bother you.
Exactly.
That's exactly it. They can continue to
Yeah.
poke the
Yeah.
bear, and you'll just be like, okay, observer, I'm the observer.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me anymore. That's how you know you've cleared the karma with that person.
Yeah. Essentially, what you're describing is literally you're describing a moment where the energy that used to fuel that memory is gone. It's been transformed. So there's nothing to poke at. And that's what I always say. Like you said, how do I know if I've changed? Well, if somebody said something to you 3 years ago and you are in agony about it for a year, somebody will say something to you now and you're going to be in agony maybe for 5 minutes, except it's not going to be an agony. It's just going to be like, "Argh," and you'll just
Right.
move on.
Right.
You won't
That's
be
just
giving
it.
all that energy. Yeah. So it's still a
Oh,
memory. It's still a memory because you want memory, you want the wisdom, but
yeah.
it's no longer, you're no longer living in the past. You're now moving on. And that goes with anything, right? Relationships, anything, relationships
Anything.
with money, anything,
Anything.
anything.
And that, my friends, is how humans become alchemists.
Yeah. Yes, we're all doing that. We're not even
Mic
realizing that we're
drop.
doing it.
That's how you become an alchemist.
Yeah.
Is any
Yeah.
situation you can rewrite the script like Dolores taught
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
She was brilliant. She didn't even know that she was planting all these seeds for us during this time of ascension. So just one last question about your QHHT, if you don't mind. What were the biggest
Mhm.
takeaways from the whole darn thing with the whole darn thing experience with me, do you think? Or was there one big takeaway, or
I feel
was
there
there
were
a big lesson?
several, but let me, it's going to sound, I don't care how it's going to, when I do care, I'm just going to say it. It helped me own what I'm here to do.
Mm,
I'll say it, it helped me own more of my power. I mean, that's such a cliche word, but it actually is. It helped me be less afraid of accepting what I'm here for.
yeah,
So that I no longer have to hide, and I've hidden most of my life. We all hide, but so that I don't have to hide nearly as much, right? And when we don't hide, we are basically like flowers opening up, exposing the beauty of who we truly are, you
mm,
know? And a lot of us are afraid of doing that. So no wonder we're dealing a lot with opening up the hearts now, right?
right. It's
We're
so
here
important.
because we're afraid of being here, but this is we talk about this. Your experience doesn't happen on the inside, it happens on the outside. Your entire life's experience is on the inside. It's hard for the mind to go, what? It's happening on the inside. So when we shift the inside, the outside has to change. There is no other option. It has to, because the outside is merely a reflection of what's within. So if we're trying to change a situation from outside, sorry, it ain't gonna happen. It's not how it's gonna happen. You can't change a source of situation by trying to get rid of a symptom, right?
Right.
And when we're trying to solve problems from symptomology only, we're not really understanding why is the symptom happening in the first place? Like, what's the root cause of it?
Right.
Right? One of the things that came to me actually in hypnotherapy one time, that if we're trying to get rid of a weed from ground up and not addressing the roots, well, we'll get rid of the weed, but within a few weeks, you'll get another thing growing because the root has not been taken care of. And I believe that the work that we're doing is to shift from inside out by looking at the roots, at the causes of our own suffering and our own pain.
Right.
And it's not easy work, as you know, and I always say to people, knowing thyself is probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest work you will ever do. But that's what you're here for.
Isn't that the whole purpose?
That is.
It
That
is.
is. How else do you know yourself other than your experiences? You don't.
Right.
You
And
don't. That's how.
sincerely, who you were 20 years ago let alone, 20 days ago. We
Yeah.
have that power. We can rewrite that script with such powerful changes of perspective. And
Hmm.
it really is the rewiring up here. And again, we're not poo-pooing what's happening up here. We're not
Mm-mm.
poo-pooing the mind, but what we're saying is we've been so trained to live here. And it's taking some time for all of us to drop into the hearts, but we're all being called to drop into the hearts. And if
Hmm.
QHHT sessions work, if astrology works, whatever works, keep doing it, because we're all being called right now. And honestly, Dolores she planted those seeds a long time ago when all of us were
Yeah.
just like, we heard her, we're like, it resonated, her message resonated, but it seems so out there at the beginning. And now it's like, oh, okay, New Earth, yes, it all makes
Hmm.
sense now,
Hmm.
why she was this pioneer telling us all this stuff years ago.
One of the things that's coming as just to piggyback to the question that you had, what's the biggest takeaway? The other big takeaway, and I think I verbalized it to you during the session, was that I am here to help process emotions. Process emotions. That's emotions. That's all. That's feminine. That's feminine, and a lot of our problems and complications stem from the fact that we are holding on to a lot of wounds, a lot of energies. So we're constantly reliving that because it's unprocessed, right? So there's a lot of purging going on right now. And I suspect this is going to be happening on a massive scale. I'm channeling right now on a massive scale going forward. And that's not to scare anybody, but it's yeah. So the more we can take care of our own inner world, the more we are able to hold what's happening and help others, because there will be other people who will be going, what's happening with me? I'm going crazy.
Yeah,
No, you just have stuff coming up. And because you've suppressed it for so long, it's a lot. It's
yeah.
a lot. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Actually,
Mhm.
in the session on those wonderful chit chats I was having with your subconscious, we were talking about how you are a trans channel. You just are, okay?
Yeah.
So, and this is hard for your mind to
Yeah.
comprehend.
Mhm.
And so the subconscious was asking me to bring this message home for you. And then I was asking, like, how can I support Joanna in moving forward after this session to step into her trans channel abilities? And there was a seed planted, um, and so maybe this is a little bit of a sneak peek for our viewers here that, during the QHHT session, at the very end, when you count down, you get the person out of the trance, back to Joanna, the person. You have the ability as the QHHT practitioner to plant a keyword so that when you say this keyword, you can put the client into trance very quickly using the keyword. It takes no time at all, right? And so I gave you the keyword. I asked the subconscious prior to giving you the keyword, what if we did these kind of trans channel sessions, question answer sort of a situation? Do you think that would help? And the subconscious said, heck yes. So I've just planted a seed there that maybe you're willing to explore in future videos like this, asking questions for Joanna.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know. I am absolutely up for the experiment. I'm just going to say, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to have my intention to be a pure channel. But I don't know what I'm going to say. So I'm just giving myself permission to whatever wants to come through. But I remember one of the things they said, all I have to, because you kept asking something about, well, tell her about work, like what she should do. And it kept coming back to the same thing. She can do whatever she wants. She can do whatever she wants. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
they
I
were
know.
very unclear.
But the one thing they said, just keep talking.
Okay,
Just keep talking.
keep
And
talking.
being a Taurus, I've always had issues with throat, right? And not being able to express when I was very young. So freely and just freely expressing myself doesn't come to me naturally. Although, as we're doing this, and there was some channeling that came through,
Yes.
this is what they talked about. See, I just when I'm in the flow, it just comes through, and I don't have to go, oh my God, who am I channeling? What am I channeling? It's just
Yeah,
so
just
the
comes
more
through.
practice we do it, the more naturally it's going to come through. So am I up for it? Yes. Heck yeah.
Okay. Well, watch for future sessions, trans channel sessions with Joanna. I've got her keyword all ready to go. So that would be an absolute thrill. But for now, I just want to thank you so much for being so open about this session, having this session with you. It was an absolute thrill. I mean, I've been watching you on YouTube for years, and so many of your you always talk, for people that are fans of Joanna, you know how she talks. She's always saying things like, well, I don't know why I'm saying this. And then you just start telling a story and you're like, well, I don't like telling my personal stories, but then you start telling a personal story. And you know, they always hit. Like, it's always like, sometimes it has nothing to do with my life, but sometimes it really has to do with my life. And it's that message I needed to hear, just to give myself permission to say, you know what, I need to close that door, you know. Even if it seems totally like you're thinking it means nothing, you're thinking it's a stupid little personal story, keep that up, because you don't know who you're hitting. You didn't even know you were talking to me for the last
Yeah.
however many years I've been watching you, 3 years, 4
Yeah.
years. And some of your little personal stories just hit right. So keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully we can like open it up a little bit more in these
Yeah.
videos. What do you think? Leave some questions and comments down below. Let us know if you would like to see this from Joanna as well. And I wanted to thank you so much for
Thank you.
taking this time with me.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Very much enjoyed it. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.